Now call me crazy, but someone like Aqua wanting to use someone like Akane to his advantage, it doesn't seem like it's gonna work out as well as he thinks, especially given how good her deduction skills actually are. I mean, with a bit of research, she was able to come to such conclusions that the masses still don't know about, such as, well, she had to have had a kid, which is why the personality changed. Not only do we know she is going to be the key into potentially finding the father, aka the killer to his mother, idol, it's a complex relationship. Not only is she going to be the key, I think, into finding him, I think someone wanting to use someone like that, while it may not bite him in the ass as hard as many characters who try to use others, and it'll be really interesting to see how this fake relationship could potentially turn real, or at the very least, what it will mean for the future of trying to find a killer, and I'm very excited to see where they take it after episode 8. Now, full live reaction to this episode is available on my Patreon. If you do want to see my full uncut thoughts, you can head on over there and consider supporting. So we had to wait an extra week to see this episode, and the wait was definitely worth it. I really think Akane is going to be a major player, and I think we already had a good taste, especially given her method acting, seeing how, like, the way she would perform in this kind of eye persona, her VA and the animation, everything about it, it was the spitting image of Fallen Eye, and it was terrifying. It was inspiring. It was a mixture of emotions seeing that come to life. And I like the fact that rather than simply going, a magical switch gets flipped and they're both madly in love, or they flip a switch and he's like, I'm just going to use her because I have no feelings. He blushed. He blushed mad hard and stormed out. He is very conflicted. And I think what's very interesting about this episode is they have a couple of moments where he talks about what it's like to be kind of born again and what it feels like because of the physical limitations of his new body. Starting as a baby, despite having an adult mind, he can't retain as many memories as a full-grown adult would in terms of the same amount of years. The idea of puberty and what it does to him, and honestly, it's not until recently where, as he's playing baseball, throwing a baseball around with Cunha, that he's able to kind of feel like he's back to a similar ending point of his first life, now that the bodies are kind of more linked up to before. Which means he's in prime position to try to actually find the father and find the killer and get its revenge. But it's interesting because he has a lot of conflicting feelings of what that relationship meant. Was he a fan? Was this his idol? Was this his mother? Was he in love? It's a pretty complex situation, all things considered. He knew her for a few years in his second life. He knew of her in his first. It's a pretty hard thing to figure out, and I like the fact that rather than just putting a black or white label of what this means to him, he's visibly confused and concerned, and that's why someone coming in being the spinning image, I mean, obviously he didn't want her to die, obviously he had some feelings to make sure that, like, she wasn't going to off herself, he cared in that way, but coming in, looking, and acting like that, yeah, it flustered him, and I like the fact that rather than just saying he's in love or he's just simply using her, it's a pretty complex feelings similar to how he felt about Ai herself. And for her, I think there's a lot more, like, you know, she's definitely way more flustered and less confused, just given that she's not two lives in one, as we can tell. So, like, it's a lot easier for her to be visibly flustered and for us to say, oh yeah, she's probably definitely smitten for him. But it's gonna be interesting, right? Because how much she'll end up learning by herself versus what he'll tell her is gonna be an interesting thing. If she was able to figure out that I had a kid. I mean, at first, in terms of the previous episode, she was talking about how maybe she met someone, she had a new love in her life. No, she came to the full conclusion, right? So it'll be interesting to see if she could figure out, before he tells her potentially, that maybe not only is Ai's one kid, two kids, that it is actually Ruby and Aqua. Potentially she could discover that, or maybe he'll let her in on the secret eventually. I don't know. What's starting as a quote-unquote fake relationship between this reality show situation is going to be very interesting, because even if they don't stay boyfriend and girlfriend, you don't introduce someone with that level of deduction, with that level of acting, and not have her remain relevant in more ways than one, and truly I think will be the major star key player of finding the father, and whatever they do with that revenge tale is going to be incredibly fascinating to follow. Now, obviously, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Not everyone gets in a relationship, and definitely the character who got the shortest end of the stick had to be Cunha. Now, Cunha is both a comedic relief, interesting perspective, and a kind of heartbreak all in one. And to see her just kind of like sitting on the bed with like the tablet or whatever she was watching, seeing the kiss, yeah, she's obviously visibly upset. And I think my favorite types of dramas or romances are where they don't make romance black or white either, where they say sometimes characters may fall in love with characters and that love isn't given right back to them, because that's part of life. People, just because you like someone doesn't mean they have to like you back. And knowing who our boy actually is, the thing that he's most in love with is the thought of revenge. So even a situation where they're apparently in a relationship, even that isn't as crystal clear as maybe she's viewing it from her phone or tablet or computer, right? And I think it's gonna be interesting because obviously they have fun, like, oh, he's into older girls, and her thinking she's a year older, to then having crushing reality set in upon her, and obviously she's pretty upset. But I like the fact that rather than just making it simple, she's in love with him and then she becomes toxic, yeah, she's probably gonna put a smile in front of him every single day, and she'll be a bit of a jokester. She'll probably still try to win him over, but at the end of the day, I like how rather than just making her a toxic rival or anything like that, they've actually made her into a pretty compelling character. If you really look at after the end of last week, most people were probably under the assumption that Akane would be a third member for this up-and-coming idol group, and instead Mem is the one who seemingly is getting recruited. Now, this will be interesting because on one hand, she should be more or less getting closer, if not past the age of most people becoming idols, but she does have a very popular internet personality, meaning bringing those fans over could really jumpstart them into getting gigs and honestly propelling their name forward. They already used Best Boy in order to throw them on the dance show in order to get their names going. So if you add in another YouTuber, I mean, yeah, you're gonna be doing pretty well. And I think that's a brilliant bait and switch, because the predictable outcome would be someone who can act that well could easily become an idol, so therefore put her a part of the sisters group, right? But instead, you're making her seemingly a part of the murder revenge plotline, even if she doesn't quite realize it just yet, as then you have another character who has already become a fan favorite in the Oshinoko fandom as seemingly being someone who had that dream. The dream's no longer there, but now the dream's kickstarted again. That's pretty fantastic. I think that's the brilliant thing about a show like this, is that the core idea is a revenge on a mother, right? What happened to her, let's get revenge, kill the bastard who not only set this up, but figure out why. And we're going for a dinner date over sushi. We played our part. Yes, maybe upper management didn't like that we leaked raw footage, but he followed the contract to a T. He did it on a personal account, so it doesn't break any rules. He's honestly kind of impressed. He's gonna give the information he has. So things are moving at a steady pace, but there's all these personal intertwined stories that I like are just as important. Even if they don't always get as much attention as the murder plot line, it still feels like these characters feel like characters rather than just, you know, cardboard cutout personalities. No, they feel like they have their own personalities and they develop alongside this murder revenge plotline, and that's pretty fantastic. But let me know what you thought down below. Theories, if you got any, of course, leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more Oshinoko on the channel. And as I mentioned, full live reaction to this wonderful episode is available on my Patreon if you're interested, and while you're there, you'll also get a video shout out. So today we have Little Big Trouble, Sacha, Buddha 523, Calvin Atkinson, and Benjamin Margolis. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.